My wife put me on speaker in front of all her friends and told me our marriage was over. They laughed so hard I could hear wine glasses clinking. I said 5 words. Okay, I understand. Then I hung up and donated our $1.3 million house to charity before she woke up the next morning. She found out when her credit card got declined trying to buy a $28 omelet. Then she drove home and couldn't open her own front door. Then her mother called, screaming so loud the neighbors heard it through the driveway. The house, Vanessa. Dear God, what did you just let him do to the house? Every lock changed. Every card canceled. Every subscription killed. Every dollar she'd ever spent was tied to accounts she didn't own, and she'd signed away her rights to all of it years ago at a dinner she barely remembers, between the appetizer and the main course, because paperwork was boring and boring was my job. This is the story of how my wife turned our marriage into content, and I turned her content into the most satisfying exit plan the internet has ever seen. I was reviewing invoices at 9:47 p.m. when my phone lit up. My wife, Vanessa. I answered out of habit, still half focused on a spreadsheet tracking our quarterly expenses, numbers she never once asked about because, as she told me multiple times, finances are just so boring, Mark. The irony was never lost on me. Those boring finances paid for her $60 manicures, her ever-expanding collection of streaming services she barely watched, her weekend flights to Palm Springs staying at boutique hotels that cost more per night than most people's monthly car payments. But the moment I heard laughter in the background, cheap wine being poured, and that hollow echo that only comes from restaurant acoustics, I knew something was wrong. Not wrong for me. Wrong for her. She just didn't know it yet. Then her voice came through, loud, exaggerated, dripping with that fake sympathy she used when she wanted to sound mature but came off as condescending. Mark, it's over. Don't text. Don't call. Just move on, okay? Her friends howled. Gabrielle, the one who sold leggings through social media, yelled loud enough for me to hear clearly, "Oh my God, he actually picked up." Another voice, slurred and delighted, "This is iconic." I could picture the scene perfectly. Vanessa at the head of the table, phone held up like a trophy, face flushed from her 3rd glass of rose, her friends leaning in with their mouths covered, eyes wide with the kind of anticipation you see at a reality TV finale. This was entertainment. I was the entertainment. What none of them realized was that I'd been waiting for this call for 11 months. I stared at my computer screen for exactly 3 seconds. My jaw tightened, then relaxed. Then I said, very calmly, "Okay, I understand," and hung up. 13 seconds total. That's how long she thought it took to end a 7-year marriage. I set my phone face down on the desk. No yelling. No questions. No begging. Just silence. Then I opened a folder on my desktop labeled Exit V, and the 13 seconds she wasted became the worst 13 seconds of her life. 11 months of quiet preparation sat inside that folder. Spreadsheets, scanned documents, legal forms with stamps and signatures, authorization letters, account statements, property deeds, a meticulously organized timeline that read like a disaster preparedness manual, because that's exactly what it was. I learned early in our relationship that Vanessa loved chaos and hated paperwork. Chaos fed her. It gave her stories to tell, drama to post about, reasons to sigh heavily on the phone with her mother. But documentation, responsibility, fine print? Those things bored her to tears. And her boredom was the most expensive mistake she ever made. While she collected Instagram followers and filmed self-care haul videos unwrapping packages bought with what she thought was our joint credit card, I collected signatures, notarizations, and digital authorizations. Every document had a date. Every account had a clause. Every single asset, the house on Willow Lane with its white columns and professional landscaping, the BMW she drove like it was hers, even her business credit card she used for brand collaborations, was in my name. Legally. Irrevocably. Documented in triplicate. Her prank wasn't an insult. It was a trigger. The unmistakable signal that she'd crossed from careless into cruel, and that I no longer owed her the courtesy of a warning. She wanted a scene? I'd give her a closing act. I need to take you back. When I first met Vanessa, she was like a lightning bolt walking into a room. Our first date at a rooftop bar, She spent half the evening positioning her drink for the perfect photo, adjusting the angle 5 times until the sunset hit the glass just right. I found it charming then. What I didn't realize was that everything with Vanessa was a transaction. Every moment needed an audience. Every experience needed validation from strangers. When she told me she loved me for the first time on a beach in Santa Monica, she made me wait while she set up her phone on a timer to capture it. The "I love you" wasn't for me. It was content. Our engagement was a 3-minute Instagram story. Our wedding was a branded event with a custom hashtag. I should have seen the warning signs, but I was lonely and she was beautiful. I told myself her need for attention was harmless. It wasn't. It was corrosive. Because when everything is content, nothing is sacred, and I wasn't her partner. I was her producer. But the night of that phone call, the show got canceled. And the producer kept the studio. At 10:05 p.m., 18 minutes after she hung up, I logged into our banking portal and revoked her card access with 3 clicks. Her business card, the one she used for designer coffee and influencer conferences, was linked to an account I controlled. Gone. Declined. Effective immediately. At 10:20 p.m., I killed every shared subscription she'd ever claimed was for work. Netflix, gone. Canva Pro, suspended. Her monthly beauty box that arrived like clockwork even though she never opened half the products, canceled. Her meditation app she'd used 3 times in 6 months, cut off. Meal delivery service, canceled. Premium Spotify, downgraded to free. Cloud storage with thousands of photos of herself, access revoked. Wine club, terminated. Each click felt like pulling a thread from a tapestry, and with each thread, the picture got clearer. She'd been living a life that was never hers. Built on my credit. Sustained by my silence. But my silence was never weakness. It was patience. And 11 months of patience had just cashed out. At 10:33 p.m., I called the locksmith I'd vetted 2 months earlier. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. sharp. He didn't ask questions. I'd already prepaid. New deadbolts, new garage code, new smart lock system. Only I would have the codes. Then I made chamomile tea from a loose leaf tin Vanessa bought once, used twice, and forgot about. I sat back at my desk and reviewed the next phase. No shaking hands. No angry playlists. No throwing things. Just methodical, surgical silence. Vanessa thought control meant volume. She thought power came from who could yell loudest, cry hardest, gather the most witnesses to their pain. She never understood that true control sounds like nothing at all. It's the quiet click of a door locking. The soft buzz of a scheduled email sending at 6 a.m. The calm rhythm of someone who's been ready for months and is now simply pressing buttons. That night, I reviewed the draft emails I'd prepared months ago and scheduled them all for 6 a.m. One to the property management company, terminating Vanessa's access to the downtown apartment. One to the car dealership, returning the leased BMW. One to my insurance broker, removing her as a beneficiary. Early enough to be processed before she woke up. Late enough that I'd be gone before anyone tried to reach me. But before I tell you what happened next morning, I need to tell you about my father. Because without him, none of this exists. Augustus raised me and my sister alone after our mother walked out when I was 7. No custody battle. She just signed away her parental rights and disappeared. I watched my father work 3 jobs to keep us fed, skip meals so we could eat, and age 10 years in the span of 2. When he asked for help, from the state, from charities, from anyone, he got turned away. Resources are limited. We prioritize women and children. As if he wasn't raising children. As if his struggle was worth less because of his gender. He died of a heart attack when I was 19. The doctor said genetic. I knew better. It was stress. Exhaustion. The slow, grinding weight of doing everything alone with no safety net. I promised myself that if I ever had the resources, I'd create what my father never had. 2 years ago, I established the August Foundation, a registered nonprofit providing transitional housing for single fathers rebuilding their lives after divorce. Named after my dad. And now it was about to serve a second purpose. Because how do you argue someone is punishing you when they're donating to charity? How do you spin helping struggling fathers as revenge? You can't. That was the whole point. My lawyer, Daniel Chen, had been briefed on this scenario for a year. Every conversation framed as hypothetical. If a marriage were to end, what would the process look like? He never asked unnecessary questions. At 11 p.m., I sent him a single text. Green light. Proceed with phase 2. His reply came in minutes. Paperwork ready by 11 a.m. Phase 2 was the trust transfer. The house on Willow Lane would go into an irrevocable trust held by the August Foundation. Once filed, no reversing it. Vanessa would have zero legal claim. Daniel had already identified 3 candidates for the program. Jerome, a 42-year-old teacher living in his sister's basement, fighting for custody of his 2 daughters. Raymond, a 36-year-old veteran whose ex cleaned out their accounts and took their son across the country. Tyler, a 29-year-old graphic designer sleeping in his car while paying child support that left him $300 a month. Good men crushed by the system. And they were about to move into a $1.3 million house that my wife thought was hers. But there was someone else in my plan that Vanessa never saw coming. Mrs. Kowalski, our elderly neighbor. Kind to me. Ice cold to Vanessa, ever since Vanessa reported her garden gnomes to the HOA for being aesthetically inconsistent with the neighborhood vibe. 6 months before the phone call, I'd asked Mrs. Kowalski to keep an eye on the house while I traveled for work. Cars she didn't recognize. Packages at odd hours. Visitors who didn't use the front door. She agreed without hesitation. What she told me over those months confirmed suspicions I'd carried for years. Things I couldn't prove but no longer needed to, because the prenup covered everything regardless. Mrs. Kowalski didn't just watch the house. She watched my marriage die in real time from across the fence, and she kept notes. I never told her what I was planning. I didn't need to. The day after the locks changed, she left a batch of homemade cookies on my old doorstep with a note that read, "For the new residents. Welcome home." She knew before anyone told her. She'd been waiting for this almost as long as I had. I opened a private photo album on my phone one last time. The early days. Vanessa laughing at something I'd said, eyes crinkled, genuinely happy. A lazy Sunday selfie, messy hair, real smiles, no filter, no audience. I remember when that photo was taken. She'd rolled over in bed, grabbed my phone, and just snapped it without thinking. No positioning. No angle adjustments. No retakes. It might have been the last truly spontaneous thing she ever did with me. I looked at it for 30 seconds. Then I deleted the entire album. You can't move forward if you keep looking back. And I'd spent 7 years looking back at a version of Vanessa that stopped existing a long time ago. I packed a bag and walked out of the house on Willow Lane for the last time. But I wasn't the only one making moves that night. Gabrielle, the friend who screamed, he actually picked up, during the call, went home and posted a TikTok. A dramatic reenactment of the phone call, complete with a fake speakerphone prop, exaggerated crying noises meant to be me, and a caption that read, "When your girl finally dumps the boring husband and the whole table goes crazy." She tagged Vanessa. She tagged the restaurant. She tagged the wine brand. It got 12,000 views overnight. And she had no idea that in less than 24 hours, that video would become the single most damaging piece of digital evidence against all of them. The next morning, Vanessa woke up around 10:40 a.m. I know her patterns. 7 years of them. Head pounding, mouth sour, phone on the floor at 11% battery. She'd scroll Instagram, see her story captioned, "Sometimes you just have to choose you," smile at the 43 likes, and convince herself she'd done something empowering. Then she tried to buy breakfast, and her entire world would start collapsing in a cafe line. She walks into that trendy spot on 3rd Street, orders her usual truffle omelet, oat milk latte, $28. Taps her card. Declined. Taps again. Declined. Pulls out the backup card, the business one. Declined. The line behind her grows impatient. A guy checks his watch. A woman with a yoga mat size. Vanessa's face flushes. She steps aside, dials customer service with trembling hands. "We're sorry, but we cannot locate an active account under that information." She tries the other card. She tries the bank app. Password incorrect. Account locked. She calls me. Straight to voicemail. Texts me. Delivered, not read. That sick feeling in her stomach? That's not a glitch. That's not fraud protection. That's the sound of 11 months of preparation hitting her like a freight train, and the train hasn't even reached full speed yet. Meanwhile, Gabrielle's TikTok was climbing. 50,000 views by mid-morning. Comments split right down the middle. Half cheering, queen behavior, half suspicious, this feels mean. Imagine your wife doing this to you. The algorithm was pushing it hard, and it was about to collide head-on with something that would flip the entire narrative in a single comment. Vanessa called her mother, half laughing, trying to play it off. Mom, something weird is happening. Mark's being dramatic about last night. Patricia didn't laugh. She never liked me, thought I was too quiet, too unavailable, but she respected one thing about me, my precision. She knew I didn't do anything without a reason. What exactly did you say to him, Vanessa? It was just a joke. I told him it was over. On speaker. The girls thought it was funny. Silence. Then cold. You told him it was over? On speaker? With witnesses? Mum, relax. He knows I wasn't serious. Patricia's voice dropped. Vanessa, I need you to listen carefully. Do you still have a copy of your prenuptial agreement? My what? A long pause. That's what I was afraid of. And that one sentence, from the one person who should have been on Vanessa's side, told her more than any lawyer ever could. While Vanessa was spiraling, I was in Daniel Chen's office signing documents. The trust transfer was clean, immaculate, airtight. One house, 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths. Appraised at $1.3 million. Once you sign, Daniel said, the transfer is immediate and irrevocable. I picked up the pen. Steady. Unhurried. Initialed each page. Slid the folder back. The locksmith? He asked. Finished at 9. He studied me. How long have you been planning this? Planning? 11 months. Preparing? Since the day we got married. That's a long time to live with uncertainty. It was the only way to live with certainty. He smiled, not happy, just recognition. My divorce cost me $140,000. I wish I'd had your foresight. By 11:15 a.m., the deed transferred. Permanently. Vanessa's name was never on it. Legally, she'd been a guest in my house for 7 years. A guest who never read the guest policy. And then the internet did what the internet does. Remember Gabrielle's TikTok? By noon it crossed 200,000 views. A user called at Property Records Nerd, someone who apparently spent their free time searching county assessor databases, dropped a comment that changed everything. Fun fact, the house in Vanessa's Instagram posts at 847 Willow Lane was transferred to a non-profit foundation this morning. Public record. Filed at 11:15 a.m. Donation worth $1.3 million. This man didn't just leave. He donated the entire house to charity. 8,000 likes in 2 hours. The narrative flipped like a switch. She broke up with him on speaker and he gave the house to single dads? Greatest plot twist I've ever seen. She fumbled so hard the house left the family. He didn't sell it. Didn't hide it. Gave it away. This man chose peace and chaos at the same time. Gabrielle panicked and deleted the video. Too late. Screen recorded and reposted across 30 accounts within the hour. The internet never forgets, and it definitely never forgives. I forwarded a press release to Amanda Torres at the City Tribune. She specialized in human interest stories. I'd been cultivating the relationship for months, purely professional, mentioning my foundation work in passing, gauging her interest. She'd been very interested. Now she got the exclusive. The donation story with professional photos, foundation background, and a carefully worded statement. Her response came in an hour. This is exactly what we need. Can I run it tomorrow? Please do. I drove to my new apartment. A modest 2-bedroom. IKEA couch. Costco bed. Target kitchen. Nothing fancy. Everything mine. The house on Willow Lane had been a stage set. This apartment was designed for something Vanessa never understood, actually living. At 9 a.m. the next morning, the article hit. Local entrepreneur donates $1.3 million home to Foundation for Single Fathers in Recovery. It was glowing. Foundation mission, quotes from program alumni, statistics about overlooked single fathers. One anonymous line from me buried in the middle: sometimes the quietest men leave the loudest lessons. 300 shares in an hour. 1,000 in 2. A city council member pledged additional funding. And then Gabrielle's deleted TikTok resurfaced everywhere, stitched side by side with the Tribune headline. On the left, Vanessa's friend mocking my boring reaction. On the right, the $1.3 million donation. The comments were savage. She was laughing at him while he was literally changing lives. The boring husband just became the most interesting man on the internet. He didn't get revenge. He got legacy. Gabrielle went private within hours. Her follower count was already in freefall. But the real devastation hadn't hit Vanessa yet. Around 9:27 a.m., Patricia called. Mrs. Kowalski, watering her garden, heard the screaming from the driveway. Not Vanessa. Patricia. Through the phone at full volume. The house, Vanessa. Dear God, what did you just let him do to the house? Vanessa was standing in the driveway, staring at a lock she couldn't open. What are you talking about? He gave it away. It's all over the news. He donated the entire property to a foundation. That's not possible. He can't just. He can. And he did. Your name was never on the deed. You don't have a claim. You don't have standing. You don't have anything. Vanessa sat down on the front steps. The same steps where she'd filmed a dozen Instagram stories about gratitude and home life. But I live here. Patricia's voice went hard. You lived here. Past tense. Mrs. Kowalski told me later that Vanessa sat there for almost 2 hours. Crying, then laughing in a way that didn't sound right, then trying the garage remote. It didn't work. I changed those codes too. Eventually she drove away. Mrs. Kowalski never saw her at the house again. That evening, my phone lit up. Gabrielle, Mark, what's going on? V says you locked her out? Sophia, this is really mature, Mark. Real classy. Alexis, she was joking. You know that, right? I didn't respond to any of them. They'd laughed along. They cheered. They'd chosen their side. But there was one message I wasn't expecting. From Derek, Sophia's husband. Quiet guy. Logistics. Barely said 2 words at barbecues. His text read, Mark, I saw what happened. I showed Sophia the article. She's been quiet all evening. I think she's rethinking some things. If the foundation ever needs help moving furniture, setting up apartments, anything, I'm in. My dad raised me alone too. I stared at that message for a long time. Then replied 2 words. Thank you. A week later, Derek told me something else. Sophia had called Vanessa and told her she couldn't be friends with her anymore. Not because of what happened to me. Because of how Vanessa reacted when it happened to her. She never once asked if you were okay, Sophia told Derek. Not once. All she talked about was what she lost. Never what she did. Sophia wasn't the sharpest person in the room, but even she could see the difference between someone who lost something and someone who was something worth losing. Sometimes the allies you didn't know you had are the ones who actually matter. Over the next few days, Vanessa discovered the full scope. The downtown apartment she used as her creative space was in my name. Eviction notice Thursday. Key card dead in 48 hours. The BMW with the vanity plate, blessed, ironic now, was leased under my company. Return notice by certified mail Friday. Her business credit cards were authorized user accounts, not joint. Cancelled within the week. Even her health insurance was through my employer. Gone at month's end. One by one, every pillar of the life she'd built on my name collapsed. And every single revocation had been planned, documented, and legally reviewed months in advance. She told the world our marriage was over. I simply honored her decision. 3 days after the article went live, Daniel called with news I didn't expect. A national morning show had picked up the Tribune story. They wanted to feature Jerome, Raymond, and Tyler on air. Not me. Not the divorce. Just the mission. I said no to cameras. But I told Daniel to let the men speak for themselves. The segment aired the following week. Jerome talked about reading bedtime stories to his daughters on his sister's basement floor. Raymond talked about a letter from his son asking when Daddy was coming home. Tyler talked about showering at the YMCA every morning so his coworkers wouldn't know he was homeless. 3 men. 3 stories. 0 mentions of Vanessa. The segment went viral. Donations tripled. Vanessa tried to fight back. She called Madison, a friend in HR who supposedly knew legal stuff. Madison listened to the whole story, then went quiet. V, I hate to say this, but you don't have a case. His name is on everything. You ended it on speaker with witnesses. Any lawyer will tell you to walk away. But that's not fair. Fair doesn't matter. Legal matters. She tried social media next. Posted a vague story, when you realize you never really knew someone. Trust your gut, ladies. The comments ate her alive. Girl, you're the one who dumped him on speakerphone. Maybe read the lease before claiming it was your apartment. She deleted it in 20 minutes. Screenshots were already everywhere. Then the brand deals started dying. Vanessa had 3 active sponsorships, a skincare line, a luggage company, and a meal prep service. The skincare brand emailed first. Due to recent public developments, we've decided to pause our collaboration effective immediately. We wish you the best. Corporate speak for, you're toxic and we don't want to be associated with you. The luggage company didn't even email. They just quietly removed her affiliate link from their website. She found out when a follower DM'd her asking why the code didn't work anymore. The meal prep company was the worst. They posted a story of their own donating a month of free meals to the August Foundation, with a caption that read, supporting dads who show up. They didn't tag Vanessa. They didn't need to. Everyone understood. Her entire income stream, which she'd always described to friends as my business, dried up in 72 hours. The business had never been hers. It was built on an audience that followed her for a lifestyle she didn't own, selling products she couldn't afford, from a house that had someone else's name on the deed. The whole thing was a castle built on someone else's land, and the landlord had just come to collect. Then came the call from Daniel Chen to Vanessa directly. Miss Reed, the property at 847 Willow Lane is no longer under Mr. Ellis's ownership. It was transferred to the August Foundation, a registered 501c3. But I live there. You are not listed on the deed, the mortgage, or any rental agreement. You are not legally a tenant. We're married. It's our house. The property was purchased before your marriage with Mr. Ellis's separate assets. You signed a prenuptial agreement waiving all claims. I never signed a prenup. The pause. The kind that communicates everything. Miss Reed, I have your signature on file. Notarized. March 15, 2018. And Vanessa's mind went back to that Italian restaurant 3 weeks before the wedding. Mark pulling out a folder between courses. Just standard stuff. Marriage license, insurance, banking. The lawyer said to get it done early. She'd been arguing with the caterer about vegan options that week, obsessing over bridesmaid dress shades. Paperwork was boring. Mark handled boring. She signed where he pointed without reading a single word. Every signature, a nail in the coffin she built herself. Daniel continued, tone unchanged, like reading a grocery list. Your belongings have been packed and placed in storage. Unit 714, Secure Space, Hamilton Avenue. First month prepaid. You can't throw me out. You were never legally a resident. This isn't an eviction. It's notification that ownership changed. I want to talk to Mark. Mr. Ellis has instructed me to handle all communication. This is cruel. Miss Reed, I'd recommend consulting your own attorney. But I should mention that any claims would be difficult given the recorded evidence from Wednesday evening. Vanessa's blood went cold. What evidence? The phone call. On speaker. Multiple witnesses. You stated, and I quote, "It's over. Don't text. Don't call. Just move on." Mr. Ellis acted on your declaration. Plus Gabrielle's TikTok, time-stamped and screen-recorded across the internet. A permanent, public, digital confession that she ended the marriage voluntarily, on camera, while laughing. She'd handed me every weapon I needed and didn't even realize it. The line went dead. And in the silence that followed, I imagined Vanessa finally understood something she'd missed for 7 years. Every time I'd gone quiet after she embarrassed me, I wasn't sulking. I was filing. Every time I didn't fight back when she mocked me in front of friends, I wasn't being weak. I was being patient. And every time she assumed my silence meant she'd won, she was actually watching herself lose in slow motion and mistaking it for a victory lap. By week's end, Vanessa was at her mother's house. Everything she owned was in a 10 by 10 storage unit that smelled like dust and bad decisions. Her follower count bled out slowly, not dramatic enough for a viral collapse, just a steady leak that empties the tank. She'd built her identity on the beautiful house, the luxury car, the designer clothes, the effortless glamour. Now everyone knew the truth. None of it was hers. She'd been a tenant in someone else's success and confused it for her own life. Then something happened that even I didn't plan. A family law attorney named Claire Whitfield reached out to the foundation. She'd seen the Tribune article and the morning show. She wanted to offer pro bono services to the men in the program. Her brother had been a single father who lost everything in a custody battle. Within a month, she'd helped Jerome win full custody. His daughters moved into the Willow Lane house. The first night, he cooked them dinner in the kitchen Vanessa used as a smoothie video backdrop. Except this time, someone was actually using it. Someone who needed it. Someone who deserved it. 3 weeks after the phone call, Vanessa came back to the house one last time. Ball cap low, oversized sunglasses, hoodie zipped up in 82-degree heat. Trying not to be recognized. She parked 2 blocks away. Mrs. Kowalski pretended not to see her. The Johnsons looked away. She crept through the side gate she'd installed to make the property feel European, never imagining she'd use it like a trespasser. Inside, she heard voices. Professional. An open house. She peeked through the glass and saw a couple admiring the countertops she'd picked, asking about the appliances she'd chosen. And standing beside them with a clipboard was Sophie, my executive assistant. The woman who used to fetch Vanessa oat milk lattes. Now managing the viewing like she owned the place. Vanessa pushed the door open. Sophie looked up. Didn't flinch. Hi, Vanessa. Neutral. Professional. Not hostile. Not uncomfortable. Like running into an acquaintance at a coffee shop. I want to talk to Mark. He's not available. Get him on the phone. Vanessa, you don't have standing here. Not a tenant. Not a stakeholder. Not on any documentation. If you stay, it's trespassing. The words were delivered gently. They hit like concrete. You're threatening me? I'm reminding you of reality. Sophie pulled out a manila envelope sealed with the August Foundation logo. What is this? Closure. Vanessa tore it open. Inside was a single photograph. A still from the night of the prank, pulled from Gabrielle's TikTok before deletion. Vanessa on speaker, wine glass raised, mouth wide open mid-laugh, frozen in the exact moment she said those 5 words. A yellow post-it stuck to the bottom. My handwriting. Always read the room. And the contract. Vanessa stared at the photo. She looked so happy, so sure of her power. Now it felt like looking at a stranger walking into traffic without checking both ways. This is sick, she said. He planned this to humiliate me. Sophie's voice shifted for the first time. Not sympathy. Tired patience. He planned it to protect himself. You made it public. The speakerphone. The Instagram story. Gabrielle's TikTok. You lit the match, Vanessa. He just made sure you couldn't burn anything that wasn't already yours. Vanessa looked around. New furniture. New staging. Wine rack empty. Her chaos edited out of every corner. This wasn't a home anymore. It was a mission. A legacy. A second chance for men who actually needed one. Tell him he's a coward. I'm just the assistant. I hope he's proud of this. Sophie's face didn't move. He doesn't feel anything about it. He's done. Done. Not angry. Not hurt. Not vindictive. Just done. Vanessa walked out. Nobody followed. Nobody called after her. She wasn't the ghost of that house. She was just noise. And even that had finally gone quiet. 1 month later, I'm sitting on the balcony of my apartment, the modest 2-bedroom overlooking a park, drinking coffee with Chester, a 3-year-old mixed breed I adopted from the shelter for $80. Overlooked for months because he wasn't a puppy, wasn't a purebred, wasn't Instagram-worthy. Best $80 I ever spent. My phone buzzed. Derek, the logistics volunteer. Mark, you need to see this. A photo. Jerome's 2 daughters had taped a hand-drawn sign to the front door of the Willow Lane house. Wobbly crayon letters. Thank you for our new home. Below the sign, Jerome was crouched down hugging both of them, crying. Not the photogenic kind. The real kind. The kind that comes from realizing the world hasn't completely given up on you. I looked at that photo for a long time. Chester leaned against my leg. The park was quiet. The coffee was the kind I actually liked, not the overpriced stuff Vanessa bought for the aesthetic. And for the first time in 7 years, I felt something I'd forgotten existed. Real, unperformed, unfiltered peace. Vanessa built her world on attention, chaos, and the constant need for validation from strangers. She needed witnesses for everything. Applause. Proof that she mattered. I built mine on silence, preparation, and the understanding that the most powerful moves are the ones nobody sees coming. When our 2 worlds collided, only one survived intact. The lesson isn't complicated. Be careful who you mock. Be careful what you take for granted. And be very, very careful what you say on speakerphone. Because sometimes the quietest men leave the loudest lessons, and mine is still echoing.